And we're recording. Hello, my name is Bryce Tubbs. With me today is Paul Elliott. He's a life, business, and high-performance strategist. He provides strategies to take control of your mental, physical, and financial destiny. I'm super excited to be able to share this conversation with you today. Thank you so much, Paul. I appreciate your time today.
Yeah, no worries. Always a pleasure to talk to somebody.
Excellent. Is there anything else you'd like me to add to the introduction?
No, I think that's kind of, it's always tricky, isn't it, in the sense of, even for myself, trying to articulate exactly what I do and how I do it in a world which is cluttered with everybody of every kind, in the sense of, how many coaches are there, how many mentors are there, how many everything's are there. It's always kind of tricky in that respect. But no, that all sounds pretty cool to me. So.
Yeah, that's so true. Everybody's like, what do you do in 3 cents? I'm like, you can't condense 5 to 10 years in 2 sentences.
No, not at all. No. It is crazy.
Yeah. Especially when people have a lot of experience like you do, what was life like before you got into this field, and what was really the catalyst that brings you here?
Well, you're going back a long time now, probably looking at you probably before you were born, mate. But I kind of went through a traditional, go way back. I went through a very traditional kind of upbringing, in the sense of, go to school, and my whole family was very much work hard, get good grades, in the UK, we did O levels, and we did A levels. That was sixth form. And then you went on to university if you wanted to. And my parents were very much, go to university. So I did that, came out of university with a degree, and then went from college straight into a job. And of course, once you get into a job, and then it's like the reality of the job kind of sinks in after the first few days. And all of a sudden I began to realize what I didn't want in life. And I certainly didn't want a job. So I carried on, eventually got fired after about a year, and then tried working for a couple of other companies and kept getting fired. So by the time I'd been fired 3 times, I thought, I don't think I'm supposed to work for anybody else. So by that time, I'd also started, because I got on the 3rd time of getting fired, I went off, did some traveling around the world. Specifically ended up in Australia. And in Australia, I met a person who introduced me to neuro-linguistic programming, NLP. Mm-hmm. And so out of that, I read Tony Robbins' book, Unlimited Power. And in reading that, I thought, this sounds exciting. This sounds like a much better way to pursue my life, in the sense of I get to help people. I get to do something which I think is fun. So then I went all out, got trained in NLP, and just started my first business with absolutely complete ignorance of how to build a business. Nobody in my family's ever built one. Nobody in my family's ever had a business. They've all been employed. So I didn't grow up in an entrepreneurial environment, but that's kind of what got it started. So it was just purely, as I said, just an idea of, I knew what I didn't want. I liked the idea of the freedom and autonomy, or what I thought would be freedom and autonomy of running my own business. But then the reality of actually growing a business took a lot more trial and error, a lot more struggle than I ever would have imagined. So it was a solid few years, probably close to a decade, before it really started to show any real promise.
Wow. Can you talk about, within that decade, a lot of people, they go for 3 months, especially in the coaching field, you go for 3 months, it's hard, and they quit. Can you talk about what it takes to be able to go through a decade where things aren't like how you planned they would be?
Yeah, it's funny actually, because I kind of have reflected on this in terms of where I am now to where I was then, and it is interesting because, one, I wanted to pursue a field. Having learned NLP, I wanted to do the coaching side of it. So I came into a field and an industry at a time when the phrase life coach, for example, didn't really exist. Other than Tony Robbins, there was nobody in the UK that I knew of. There may have been more coaches of different types in the States. I think the States are doing a few years ahead of the UK in that respect, and possibly more so at the time. So there was nobody really here. I just had this driving desire of, I want to do something which allows me to make money, allows me to make a difference in a positive way, because I like people. And so in those early days, this is before YouTube, this is before Google, this is before you couldn't just go online and look something up. Mm-hmm. You couldn't go online and type in, how do I market and sell a coaching business? So literally my education was going down the local bookstore and sitting in the business section, trying to read all the marketing books I could without actually paying for them, So, but a lot of that didn't help, because they were all wired at the time or geared towards big businesses. Like if you were a If you were a big IBM, the
Mm.
textbooks would have made sense. But as a small one-person business, they made no sense to me. They just confused me. But what kept me going was just this idea of, I'm going to make this work. It's like, I am not going to go back to a job that I hate. I am not going to spend my life doing something I completely hate just to satisfy someone else's idea of what I should be doing with my life. I'm going to make this work. I know people want help. I know I can help them. There's got to be a way to make this work. So I guess that kind of, and of course within that as well, I would say I leaned heavily on a lot of the American personal development because there wasn't really much in the UK at the time. So Tony Robbins materials, Jim Rohn's materials especially, all of that kind of stuff, I was just constantly listening to it. So that, I guess, from a garbage in, garbage out point of view, I was just making sure that there was always something positive going in my head to keep me going. You know, it's like that aspect of it, and just constantly looking for, how do I make this work?
Mm-hmm.
You know, so how do you get consistent clients? Like, you get a client every now and then, that's great, and it's like, woohoo, I got a client. But then, of course, that doesn't last forever. How do you get consistency in it? And then in the early days, you get a client, you're working with the client, and I had corporate clients then. So you're working with corporate clients. While you're working with a corporate client, you're not marketing yourself. That makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
So there was all that as well. And again, complete ignorance. I only knew growing up in the world I grew up in, that a job meant you exchange your time for money. So starting my own business, I didn't have any other thought than you just continue to exchange your time for money. So it took me a long time. I mean, looking back on it, you'd probably say, what an idiot. And I probably was at the time. But yeah, it was just pure, I guess, not so much ignorance is bliss, but just pure solid, I'm going to make this work, whatever it takes, even if it kills me, you know. So I just kept going.
Mm. That's weird, yeah. Yeah, I mean, you talk about, you said maybe you were an idiot. I don't know if you're necessarily an idiot. Who would have shown you how to do that?
Nobody. Exactly. That's the thing, isn't it? There's nobody around saying, here's how you do it. And even to this day, you know, I go on, like, social media is a brilliant market research tool if you want to use it that way. And you go online and you can look at posts and you look at the answers to the posts and you go, people still don't get, for the most part, that building a business is a mindset and a skill set. And you cannot do it without both of them. You might stumble into the skill set. Like, on a basic level, I guess the majority of people very early on in their entrepreneurial career will realize they need clients or they need to sell their product. So they begin to gain an awareness that they need to market and sell. So most people get to the point where, oh, I know I should do marketing, but I hate it. So, well, that's not going to help you. It's an essential part of this. It's critical. It's like, you know, if you're going to bake a cake and you go, well, I don't really want to put the eggs in it. It's like, well, you ain't getting a cake. It's the same idea. It's like, well, I don't want to do the marketing, then you haven't got a business. I don't like selling, then you don't have a business. So they get an awareness of those skills. But I think then there's a mindset to actually appreciating what they do for you and how they help you help other people and how necessary they are. And once you get your head around that, then you start to grow. Then, of course, you get to another level where you begin to realize actually business is more than just marketing and selling. Then you've got to like build the other pieces around it to actually allow you to grow. But in the beginning, it's that they're an awareness. But most people still don't bother to learn those skills.
Mm-hmm.
But then what confuses the issue, and this is where the internet is, like, the internet's fantastic without a doubt, but the flip side of it is there are at times so much information, some of which seems to contradict other pieces of information, that it can be very confusing. And then, of course, you get the situation where confusing messages coupled with, I guess, a human innate nature to want to find the easiest path possible means they end up buying into the whole magic button scenario, and of course spend their money on things that are just going to never deliver because it can't, it doesn't work that way. But there's still that desire that, oh, there must be a way to press that magic button and see the money roll in, you know. And that still happens, you know. So
it happens
which is
more
sad in some ways. Yeah, yeah.
And especially when you know, like, they have opportunity, like some guys will have, here's the first business, and then at the end of the course they'll say, you know, this is not for everybody, so why don't you try this version instead, it might be more for you. And opportunity just keep moving through the funnel. But yeah, can you talk about, you know, developing that sales, because a lot of coaches are scared of the sales and they don't want to be, they call it salesy, but I think that more means pushy. Can you more explain that process?
Yeah, certainly. And the things I've learned during my experience was you you need a sales process. You've got to know how to sell. But within that, as an umbrella term, there are so many ways you can approach selling. And my suggestion is pick one that you're comfortable with that plays to your natural strengths. So for me, that turned out to be, and I would never have guessed this, that turned out to be getting in front of a group of people rather than one-on-one and delivering a 90-minute presentation. I mean, in the beginning, it was a 2.5-hour presentation. It just, as I got better at it, I was able to shorten it. But it was very much my best way of actually approaching sales is one-to-many, not one-to-one. But you got to find a way that you're comfortable with. So, like, you know, as an example, at the moment, I'm going through, I don't know if you've heard of Andre Chaperon, and he's very big in the email world. And he hates video. He doesn't like being on video. So he writes email. They're all text email. And he's done brilliantly with that. So that plays to his personality, and he's developed it as a skill and as a strength. But it's that idea of pick one and master it. So for me, that was, I picked one which was one-to-many. It's like deliver a presentation with an offer at the end. And I got very good at it. So that then lent itself as we move more online. Obviously, you can then do that as a webinar or as a web training. So it had instant application online. But you've got to pick something that you're comfortable with and just run with it. You know, I see people, for example, they'll run a challenge. I mean, challenges seem very, very popular at the moment. And people are running a challenge as a way to get people into their sphere of influence. So you could argue that the challenge is a marketing tool, really. But once they're in that sphere of influence, it's like, okay, so what are you doing now to move them from, well, I liked your challenge, to actually being a client? And that's where that sales thing's coming. It's like, what are you doing? Whether that's one-to-one, or that's just sending them to a video sales letter, a written sales letter, a web class of some sort with an offer at the end. It's like, you just got to pick one, get good at it, and run with it. Does that make sense?
Of course, yeah, it makes a lot of sense. You know, I think the reason, like what you said with the challenges, they struggle because, you know, they see someone else is doing a challenge. They start running a challenge. They don't really understand why. And they go, why didn't I get clients at the end?
It's like everybody thinks, or not everybody, I shouldn't say that, but a lot of people think that the reason they're not making enough sales is because they're not getting enough traffic to the website or traffic to whatever it might be. And it's like, no, that's only one part of the equation. You could get, I could send you 1,000 leads today. How many could you turn into a client? And for the most part, sadly for most people, the answer could be 0. You know, and that's unfortunate. It's like there's a lack of understanding and a lack of a skill set. And that's not a criticism. It's just like, I'd like to raise people's awareness of, you need that skill set. Go get it, develop it. It's like, get good at it, because you're not going to serve people otherwise.
Yeah, or use a crutch. If you're the guy who can get the leads, you better be able to have a receptionist or some sort of closer, you know, who does it for you.
Without a doubt. Yeah. I mean, that's the other side of it. If you don't want to get good at that, then hire that in.
Yeah.
I mean, that's not uncommon if you're running, you know, like if you're doing a program that might cost several $1,000s or more, then get somebody in to do the one-on-one stuff, to sit on the call with somebody and move them to make it, or help them to make a decision. Obviously, there's a way of approaching that, and we could talk about that as well. But within that, it's very much about, you need someone who understands that sales process of moving somebody from, I'm thinking about it, to actually, this is right for me, I want to do it, please take my money.
Yeah, can we talk about that? Moving them to the decision?
Moving people to a decision, yeah. I mean, people will go through on a bigger scale, on a bigger picture scale. Somebody goes from blissfully unaware moving through their life to then at some point something triggers them and they realize they have a problem. They might live with the problem for a while, and then at some point they go, this is too painful, let me go find a solution. Now they start doing some research. Then they start researching and discover that solutions exist. And then they go, which one am I going to go with? So then they start digging deeper into each solution. And then, of course, they then come across somebody that delivers that provides that. So now they know you exist as a person, as a coach, whatever it might be. And now they look at what you've got to offer, and then they compare you with other people and decide who they're going to go with. So that's the bigger picture. And that's where marketing comes in. It's like, on the one hand, the earlier you can reach somebody in that decision-making process, the more influence you can have over them. And interestingly enough, if you are doing a lot of advertising online, then when somebody's at that stage where they're aware that solutions exist, that's typically where they're starting to type things into search engines because they know what they're looking for. So usually that's where you start your advertising. You target people who are at that level because they're already halfway down the decision-making process. When you want to scale, the key to scaling is to be able to reach people that are aware they have a problem or are totally unaware and make them aware. And then obviously you can then bring them into your circle of influence. And I'll give you an example. Years ago, one of the things that we did was we ran seminars on real estate investing. And in order to move people to make a decision, we just ran events. So I'd run an event which was free. I'd deliver a presentation. And of course, at the end of the presentation, people would sign up for the seminar. But to get them in that room, we ran adverts. And so one of the adverts was very much about, how are you going to retire? Are you going to retire rich? Are you going to retire broke? Or we'd run articles talking about the pension crisis, saying that most people are blindly paying into a pension. They never check it. They never look at it. And actually, when they bother to actually look at their pension statement, for a lot of people, they realize there's less in it than they paid into it. In other words, it's lost money. It's not made money. So if it's not made money and it's losing your money, when you come to retire, that day you want to retire, you go, whoops, there's nothing there. So what are you going to do instead? And we used to run articles like that with headlines, tested all sorts of headlines. And so that would get people in the room because we were making them aware of a problem they didn't even know existed. But as soon as you make them aware of that problem, and I can give you a classic example of how I tested this, how I came across it. I got invited to a barbecue party at a neighbor's house. And so obviously barbecue, everyone starts to drink a bit of wine, eat a bit of food and such like, and start chatting. What do you do? What do you do? And I was talking to people, I said, I invest in real estate and I do a few other things. And they said, oh, right. It's and subject to pensions came up. And I said, I don't know, have you ever checked your pension statement? And literally, out of the 5 or 6 people who had kind of congregated around me, they were all like, no, they arrive in the post. I just stick them in the drawer. I've never looked at them. I said, well, take a look at them. I said, have a look at them and see if what you've paid in has grown, what you paid in has lost money, or it's just exactly the same. And if it's lost money or it's exactly the same, you might want to give me a call. And I literally the following day, I had one of them call me and said, you're right, I've just looked at the statement and I have got, my pension is worth less than I've actually physically paid into it.
Wow. Like,
great. And they said, what do I do? I said, you got to take control of your financial destiny. You need some way of actually building assets and putting money in your pocket. So it's that kind of make people aware of a pain, you can greatly influence the decision. If they're already at the point where they're looking for it, like somebody might, as a coach, for example, you'll have a coach who went and did some sort of coaching training, and they want clients, they want to go out and help people, and they've got this strong desire to help people. That's a common theme with coaches, but they're not necessarily commercially very aware. So they go, okay, I want to help people. And then maybe they get a few clients, and they're not necessarily charging large sums of money, but they're getting some clients. They soon fill up their week, so 40 hours in a week. If they fill that up, and I appreciate that, not many coaches get to that point, but let's say enough of them get to that point where they're filling their week 40 hours a week and they're going, oh my God, I'm exhausted. And I'm still only making a decent income, but it ain't anything life-changing. What do I do now? And so somebody says, oh, you got to find a way to make money passively. And they go, well, how do I do that? So they start looking for ways to make passive income, and they start seeing, oh, property might be real estate, or, oh, maybe I should create a course. So now they start going, how do I create a course? Now they're looking for a solution. That makes sense. So now they're going, oh, how do I create a course? That sounds interesting. I can take my knowledge and turn it into a course. And now they start looking at people that offer those kind of services and those kind of coaching programs. And then they decide which one they want to go with. So if you catch them at that point, then it's like, can you differentiate yourself so differently from everybody else in a way that makes them feel you're the right person for them, your course is right for them. So obviously then they'll purchase from you. But that even within that point, all of those things, whether it's video, text, or you're actually talking to people, all needs to tie together. It all needs to connect the dots to solve their pain and put them in a position where they get the result they want. And that's marketing and selling. It's just how do you articulate all of that is marketing and selling.
So let's talk about, interesting. So what do you think about, so you spend a lot of money on ads, right? Or to get that initial traffic. What do you do then? Do you keep them in the list? Or are you one where you start a new funnel each time for each, like a launch style?
No. I mean, adverts I tend to drive people from an advert to a piece of content. Well, the content is, if you like, a pre-frame. So it's where I start to connect the dots for people. And the way I do it is, this is things I've learned and just developed. It's like, one of the big things that I think it's Agora Publishing is where I first heard about the idea, is the concept of a big idea, which really means, can you come up with an angle that feels new? Because one of the things human beings love to look for is new. Like, you know, if somebody wants to lose weight, they go try something, they go on a diet, they lose a bit of weight, then they stop the diet, they put all the weight back on. And so they go, oh, that didn't work. But of course, then they're disappointed, but they're not disappointed forever. At some point, they still want to lose weight. So then they see something and they go, oh, that's new, because it feels different to what they tried before. So they go, I'll give that a go. So they try that. Maybe it works, maybe it doesn't. And then if it doesn't work, they're disappointed for a while, but they still want something. So they're looking for something else. But if they see something else, they go, well, that sounds very similar to what I did. If that didn't work, that isn't going to work. But if it seems new, they'll give it a try. That makes sense. So you want to come up with an angle that allows you to appear new to them, but also from you feel the word reframe. So you want to reframe their reality. You want to show them how their problem is because they're missing a critical piece of information. And that's a reframe. So all my marketing is a reframe, with the conclusion that as they go through it, they're going, oh, right. So it's like little light bulb moments. Aha, aha, aha. So they get to this point where they've read the content or they watched the video, and so many aha moments are firing off, they realize they want to know more from you. And at that point, you can say, look, if you want to know more, let me have your email address. I'll send you the next piece. So now you've got them in your circle of influence. Okay. But once they're in there, then it's like, okay, now you can go watch the web class, the webinar, or now you can read the other pieces of content. But there's a whole system of, you know, web class followed by emails and such like, to help them make a decision. That's all it is, help them make a decision. But I think more importantly, and I live by a belief that all of this is a journey. Somebody getting a result is a journey. And therefore I can help them get that result, whatever, you know, specifically around the areas of implementing things they've learned or being able to think their way through a problem to get a decent solution, and ultimately for the purpose of having a great life. So I can help people with that, but it's that journey. And so the only way that we both benefit and that I continue to help people is obviously if they pay at some point. So they need to pay for a solution. So my belief is the journey. I'm going to start the journey off you by highlighting the things that you need to be aware of that you probably aren't, because nobody's ever told you before. So that's where it all starts. And then it gets to a point where I say, okay, look, if you want to continue this journey, and you need to continue this journey, because if you don't, you're just going to go back to your old life and nothing's going to change. And you're going to wake up in 10 years' time, 10 years older, and nothing's changed. At that point, you're going to be going, shit. So at this point, here's how it works. And then I start explaining, here's the offer, here's the product, here's the program, here's how it gets you the result. Make a decision. If you make a decision, I get to help you more. If you don't make a decision, then I hope you find another solution, because if you don't, nothing's going to change. Nice. That makes sense. So I'm very much, it's like, I want to help. And this came up a couple of years ago. I was in South Africa doing like a mini speaking tour. So there was me and about 6 other speakers, a local promoter who'd organized 3 events. And the guy they brought in to host each day. So each day's event, there'd be multiple speakers, and then there was a host for the whole day. Was a South African speaker, brilliant guy, high energy, very motivational, very funny. But what he was poor at was selling. And you could see it as soon as he started pitching to the audience. So he sort of switched from, I'm here to engage and share ideas and make you feel good, to I'm here to share my product. His whole energy shifted. You know, you could see it in him. And he was completely uncomfortable. And of course, if he's uncomfortable, then he's doubting his own product. And if he's doubting his own product, then the audience are going to doubt it. And I said to him after, I said, what's going on? He said, well, I just don't like the sales thing. I said, you're not selling. You're helping people come on a journey, because they've got to come on the journey with you. Otherwise, you can't help them. So if they don't come on this journey, their life doesn't change. And if you allow them to do that, you're doing them a disservice. And that's my belief. That's my core belief around marketing and selling. Like, I'm here to make an impact. But you don't help people. Like, what's that? Bishop Tutu said, when I was a kid, I remember seeing him on the news. And he said, you don't help the poor by being one of them. So I want to help people. I can't give it all away for free, because then I'd have nothing left to give. You only give what you've got. So therefore, this is where capitalism works. It's like there has to be an exchange of value. So they've got to come on the journey, you know, and it's up to you to do whatever you can to help influence their decision to go, you know what, I'm doing this. And I think that's more important than the tactics of marketing and selling. It's like that belief needs to drive everything you do. That makes sense. Because like my big thing is, well, my two core messages are very much, you don't build a business in isolation. You've got to take care of all aspects of your life so you have a great life. Like, there's no point being rich and in poor health, because of course you don't get to enjoy it. So you've got to have everything. And the only way you're going to get everything is if you plan it and pay attention to it. So, my whole thing is about having a planning system and a way of approaching it to make sure you stay on top of everything. Nobody has a great life by accident. It doesn't happen. You've got to be conscious of it. You got to plan it. You got to measure it. You got to take action. You got to get the feedback from that. All of that matters. And then the other side of it, of course, is nothing works out the box. Like, you could buy a course from somebody and they're going, buy this brilliant Facebook advertising course and start making gazillions overnight. And it's like, it might be a brilliant course. It might cover all the great fundamentals of marketing and sales and how to advertise on the Facebook platform. It might be superb and worth every single dollar they're charging for it. But it will not work out the box for you exactly the same way it works for them, because you're not them. You don't have the same strengths. You don't have the same background. You don't have the same experiences. So that, therefore, you have got to be able to customize it to make it work for you, your personality, your strengths. How do you do that? You got to learn how to think. And you got to be able to learn how to think in a systematic way so that you can capture your thoughts and translate them into a way that allows you to customize this so it works for you. That makes sense. And that's what I do. It's like I help people think more than anything else. I mean, I call myself a strategic rebel because you've got to be strategic in your thinking. But the purpose of it is to allow you to outthink your problems, customize anything you need to learn, and make it work.
Nice. So let me ask you this question. So talking about audience, so let's say that they're already inside the process, right? We talked about the funnel, but they don't really want to buy this offer. Maybe it's not the right offer for them. Are you a person who sticks with one offer mainly, or do you have like a lot of different back-end offers as a backup plan to recoup your investment, or not really?
Let me separate that out. So in terms of, I have one primary offer. Yeah, that's where it all starts. So therefore and this is also a part of keeping things simple. If you're starting out and you're running a coaching type business where it's a service, you want to define what your core offer is. So if you've got one core offer, you ideally in the beginning, you want one core way of selling it. So for example, I got one core offer. My primary way of selling anything is a webinar. So one way of selling it. And then ideally you want one way of driving traffic into that funnel. Because otherwise you're going to overcomplicate it, and nobody can stay on top of Facebook, LinkedIn, TikTok, YouTube, and all of the Instagram. You can't do all of that on your own. It's like, unless you've got a team. And in the beginning, you're just gonna overwhelm yourself, and you'll never get anything done. But if you picked one thing and said, I'm going to master that, then you'd get things done. So I have one way of doing all of that. But then once they're in your sphere of influence, let's say they're on your email list and they're actually engaging with your emails, then yes, if they haven't bought the initial offer, then that's fine. They stay on the email list, and then next month there's another angle, there's another campaign. That makes sense. But my campaign is very much, it's going to be the same webinar. I might break it up and do it in pieces, but it's the same webinar with the same offer, but I'll approach it from a different angle. So the marketing, if you like, is slightly different. And I understand, like, not everybody's ready to buy today. But somebody might be ready to buy in 3 months' time, or 6 months' time, or 9 months' time, or a year's time, whenever they're ready.
Yeah.
And all I'm going to continue to do is continue to share things that I believe are valuable, that I believe are going to make a difference. And then within that, I'm going to keep saying, look, to continue and finish this journey and get the result you want, you will need this product. So go get it. And I'm going to keep saying it that way. And I'm going to keep being direct about it, because I know that's how they finish the journey. So I don't know, I've never checked the stats, but if somebody had been on my email list for 10 years and never bought it, I'd probably send them an email saying, what the friggin' hell are you playing at? Because your life ain't changing. You're just playing this game, you're pretending you want the success, but you're not actually doing anything about it.
Nice. Cool. Let me ask you this question. So what does success mean to you?
To me, success is, I can put it in order. Success very much is freedom. So within that, I mean freedom of my time, freedom of what I choose to do, freedom of who I work with, freedom of the purpose that I'm driven by. And then on a more day-to-day level, the ability to run my business in a couple of hours a day, the ability to spend time with my children, ability to be able to, well, obviously not right now, but the ability to be able to take them on holidays and vacations and things like this and have experiences. I mean, obviously lockdown's a little bit of a tricky one around that, but certainly it's that freedom to do those things. I guess it's choice. It's that ability to have choice, to feel that I'm driving my destiny and that I get to do the things that I want to do with the people that I love and that I get to make a difference on a bigger scale. You know, that's success to me. But then within that, it's like, well, I got to take care of my physical health. I've got to make sure I'm in shape. I've got to make sure I've got the energy and the drive and the musculature. I mean, as I've got older, I mean, I've always done martial arts, you know, and I'm in my 50s now. So I say to people, I still do martial arts because it's self-defense against getting old.
Yeah.
You know, it's not, I'm not interested in worrying about whether someone's going to attack me on the street. That's unlikely to happen. I'm more interested in making sure that my body stays young, my mind stays active, so that I can obviously continue having a great life and fill it with great experiences.
What style of martial arts?
Shotokan karate.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. So traditional sort of Japanese art, or well, Japanese art in the sense of how I've learned it. But then within that, you know, I've obviously lots of things have changed over the last 20 years, and so I've looked at, you know, I've done a little bit of Krav Maga and a few other things. And it's interesting from a purely hobbyist point of view. When you look at something like Krav Maga, then you can look back at katas within karate and see things that you didn't see before. You know, so I like it in that respect. So, but yeah, but my primary focus is Shotokan karate.
Nice. Yeah, I did Hapkido for about 7 years, but before that, Taekwondo for like 3. You know, just
nice.
Just it's really fun to be able to kind of do it because not many people actually understand like the arts. You know.
Yeah.
Because everybody's like, you're just fighting. Like, it's a little more to that than just that.
A lot more to than that. Yeah. And interestingly enough, like if you listen to any of Tony Robbins' material, he has his 6 human needs. And obviously within that, the last 2 needs are a sense of growth and a sense of contribution. And that sense of growth is what keeps you doing something. And so karate for me has always had that sense of growth built in, because no matter how good you are at doing a particular technique, you can always be better. You know, so you always discover something within it. Like the way I approach a kick or a punch today is very different to how I did it, you know, when I first started in karate 20 odd years ago, you know, so nice. It's better, it's faster, it's more relaxed, it's more fluid. I can generate more power. There's little things in there that I didn't even know I could do when I started out. So there's always that growth path. I guess that's mastery, isn't it? That's the path of mastery.
Yeah. Let me ask, okay, so where can people go to, wait, actually, no, let's do a step back. So do you have any new things that you'd like to tell audience about, or any new things you have going on?
Since lockdown, all of my attention has gone on, every turning is developing more courses. I guess I'm a creator in that respect. I like to develop ideas, but my primary focus is still very much around, I have a program called Crush It, which is all about designing your life vision. So all aspects of your life, including your business and money, and then translating that into goals, into a plan, and then monitoring that plan so you actually execute on it and get the results. That's my primary focus, because within all of that is that systematic way of how do you think so you can outthink a problem? How do you customize things so you make it work for you? That's my primary focus. That's, to my mind, is the thing that everybody needs. Obviously, wrapped around that is the mindset that goes with it to make it work, which is more of an entrepreneurial mindset. That's the big thing. Then I've got, you know, I do a real estate program, how to negotiate real estate so you can build a portfolio for your financial freedom. And that's, I guess, my 2 primary areas in terms of courses. And then I've sort of done little offshoots things, like I've done a little course on journaling. So that people, like journaling is probably my, well, without a doubt, is my single biggest go-to tool for thinking. You go, the journal's just a book with blank pages in it. You go, yeah, but you know, I've built some of those books and they're worth millions, because what's in them has generated millions. Does that make sense? So you know, it's a brilliant tool. Once you understand how to think, it's a brilliant tool. And then I've got another one on where one of the things when you're designing a presentation, and actually this is relevant to all marketing and sales, is you're not necessarily unique in your field. Like there will be other people who do similar things. But what you can do is take what you do and turn it into a unique model. And that allows you to brand yourself uniquely. So I have a little course on how to do that. So those are kind of the areas that I really, but my whole focus is helping people with their financial, their career, their mental, so you can stay focused, stay on track, and their physical, so that you can have great health and the energy and the agility to actually enjoy your life. So that obviously you can have a great life with your loved ones, with your children, with your friends, make an impact. You know, it's like the best, you want to change the world, it's like change you. Be the best version of you there is, which means express that by living the best quality of life you can possibly live.
And, you know, where can people go either to learn more about you or to go and, you know, look at some of the offerings you have?
Simplest thing is strategicrebel.com. That's the main website. Or you can find me on LinkedIn as you did. Just Paul Elliott, Strategic Rebel.
Excellent. You know, thanks so much for...
Yeah, there's a YouTube channel as well if you want to go on there. Sorry, I'm interrupting.
I interrupted
yeah, there's a YouTube
Sorry.
channel as well. Yeah, that's all right.
Excellent. So, for those watching, hopefully you got some tremendous value out of today's episode. I know I did. So if you want to be able to get around a community of people who are like-minded, people who are uplifting and, you know, inspiring new people every single day, I recommend you go and check out our free community. It's basically a mastermind where people come together and support and uplift each other every single day. So again, click on the link either above or below to go and check out that community. Hopefully you enjoyed watching this as much as we enjoyed creating it. Feel free to hit that share button so other people can get some great value as well. Have a great day. See you later. We're done recording in 3, and 2, and 1.